online advertising is simply putting a banner up. Because what online allows you to do is you allow yourself to control the narrative of your own company. You get to publish articles and inform people of your new products. I don't want to name any particular company right now, but there are also large companies that still miss the mark in advertising. And most recently, I don't know how many of you people are on this particular telco, but by a show of hands, does anyone know Kocho Kocho? Yeah? What is it, man? Like, I make a transaction and it's like, you have 10 points for Kocho Kocho. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, right? And that's a big company. A big company can still miss the mark in the advertising. So whereas someone may come up here and tell you that just give us money and we'll put something there and it's going to work. We actually, what happens is we have no problem refusing a particular strategy because we will, at the end of the day, have to charge you for it. But then we're in a position to tell you from our analytics that this will not produce value. Yes? So ours is short. We're only here as partners. Actually, here, personally, I'm very happy to be in the presence of all of you. I want to get to talk to you guys. I want to see which business you guys are into. And if you do want to find out more about Tuko, once again, Joy is there. Joy, kindly wave to everyone. And myself, Leon. For those of you that leave at different times, you can take my number down. My number is 0717 683 297. I'll say that again. 0717 683 297. And would love to talk to you guys, Tuko. Come down to our offices and we can see how we can make your businesses grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's appreciate Leon Mtua, who's a representative of Tuko. And once more, I'd like us to appreciate you for being here. Let's do the 3 factorial clap. Thank you. Now, it's been said most Kenyans are a disaster away from abject poverty. This disaster could be in the form of an accident, loss of employment, or loss of business. So how do we mitigate this, especially the health part? Today, we have a representative from AAR Insurance, a Gitao committee, who's going to tell us more on how we can tap into insurance and protect ourselves from this disaster. Protect ourselves from sinking into abject poverty and losing all our possessions just because you experienced one disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome committee with a clap. The royal clap now. This is how you do it, for those who are not here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, guys. How are you doing? I know I'm in a bit of, it sounds like I'm in a bit of a far left end, but we need to ask ourselves a big question. We are looking at business, starting a new business, but at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself, what happens if you do not take care of your own self? Because at the end of the day, you're working. It is your body that is working, right? You wake up every day in the morning and you go back home. But if something happens, are you going to go back to your savings? Or you need something that is going to help you take care of that risk? So I'm from AAR Insurance. My name is Gitao Kamiti, as you heard. I'm a business manager there. Most guys I know, they do not know the meaning of AAR Insurance. If I would ask someone who knows the meaning of AAR, I don't think there'd be anyone who knows. So AAR Insurance means Africa Air Rescue. Initially, AAR was established in 1984. What used to happen is they used to do air and road evacuation. So they take you from the disaster or where you are, then they take you to the hospital. Then they saw there was a gap. They took advantage of the gap. We started health. We have as Cooperative Bank was saying, when it comes to small, medium enterprises, it is a big market. It employs millions of Kenyans. But then at the end of the day, most of these employees, they are not covered. And for productivity, you need to have someone to be in good health and in good health and have a good well-being. So AAR, last year we developed a product basically for the small enterprises, SMEs as we call it. It is custom-made. We do not need you to be a group of so many people, just 3. Because at the end of the day, if you're starting a small medium enterprise, there's that starting point. So we advise you guys, you come in, if you're just 3 people, that is enough. We can custom make a product for you, and then we will work with you day in, day out. For us, at the end of the day, it's a business as well. So we have to keep in touch, we need to advise, and we also nutrition. We have a program that is called well-being, whereby even us as staff, we have to do every week, twice a week, we have to go to the field. And it's a good product. It's something that it has to be encouraged to everyone. But I do not want to take so much of the time. And then I can see it's time for lunch. So I don't want, I'm seeing a few guys yawning here and there. So for more details, we are just at the end on the other room. You can come to us and you can talk more in regards to our products. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Let's appreciate committee. So after this, we're going to have a session, the panel session. Soon after, we're going to have an interactive session on the other end where you can meet other entrepreneurs. You'll get a chance to meet the keynote speakers, panelists, and everyone, so you can network. But before then, we have one last presentation for today. I'm sure you've seen the ads on YouTube, across all social media platforms. There's this new company that has come into the country looking to tame in the matatu industry, the madness that characterizes matatu industry. This company is called Swivel, and we have Shazeb who's going to show us a small presentation on what they do and how we can be partners in this. Thank you. Let's welcome Mr. Shazeb.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. This is Shazeb Maiman from Swivel. How many, by show of hands, how many people have seen a YouTube ad? Too many? Cool. We'll have to talk to YouTube. Well, let me quickly, without taking a lot of time, let me quickly run you guys down through what Swivel is. Who am I? So I'm the head of global expansion at Swivel. It's been a month that we launched this company here. It's an Egyptian-based company, an African company. It's 20 months old now. In Egypt, it's doing like amazing. It's doing great. And then we came out and we looked into Africa and we looked, what's the next market to be? When I came here and when I saw it around, I just felt that there are 2 things that exist in the market. There's one, a public transportation, and then there's one, the ride-hailing services. There's nothing really in the middle, right? I mean, you and I, we all go to work every day. We take one trip in the morning, and then we take one trip coming back. How many people can afford the ride-hailing services? And how many people have the power to pay more, but because of the lack of an alternative, go back to the public transport and all? So we call ourselves as a premium mass transportation. It's a little more expensive than the public transport, but it's like 300%, 3x cheaper than the ride-hailing. If you guys haven't had a chance to install the app, it's called SWVL, Swivel. It's on Play Store, it's on iOS. All you do is, I wish there was a projector, I could have run you guys down through how it all works. It's super simple. You go through the app, you sign up. So there are lines that are available. So let's say one line is from Ongata, Rongai to, let's say, Upper Hill, right? So you click that. There are 2 ways through which you can search. It's either, so as soon as your location is on, it automatically, like the ride-hailing service, automatically tells you what your location is, and then you put in your drop-off location, and then it tells you the next available lines. So there's a line every 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. We're expanding more. We are already into 6 routes now. Just open the app, browse through. It's, I mean, the feedback that we are getting from the people on Twitter, from the people, so we are doing like a weekly community management session in the office. People love it. Like, it's something that looks like people have been waiting for, and something that now is bringing some sort of sanity in the whole space, in the whole industry. And yeah, if there's any other question that anybody wants to ask, if there's any conversation that anyone wants to have, I will share I will be outside, and I will share my email address, and if somebody wants to get in touch, we can sit down and we can talk more. But that's the app, and yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Now we're going to do the short presentation from Credit Bank, then have the panel session. Soon after, we'll have an interactive session, and we have the good fortune of having TV47, who are going to do interviews for entrepreneurs here. So if you'd like to be featured in their channel, you can just walk up right behind after the panel session. So just play the presentation, then we do it.
I'll just ask you. This is Merrill Daily Cooperative Union.
Since the last year, we have been able to do much. The factory just adjacent to us is a new factory, an extension of the old factory. And we are putting in 2 new lines, which have been supported by Great Bank at about 240 million Kenya shillings. And these lines are already in Kenya. We bought from and soon we want to put them in production and start new products.
Credit Bank is also turning out to be the ideal bank for the SMEs in manufacturing.
We have about 44 different products. We have found in Credit Bank a more accommodating financial partner. And you need it because you're buying raw materials. As you can see, we are holding a lot of stocks. You have to send the goods to the market. You send the goods on credit. You don't get paid even for 90 days. But you need to make sure that you keep supplying the market as you collect. So where you need a financial partner is basically bridging the gap, the cash flow gap between the sales you made, the collections, and the need to have raw materials so that you can continue operating. So a lot of financial institutions don't understand that. And for a business that starts from a very low capitalization level, then the only way to fill the gap, the funding gaps, is if you get a good financial partner. And that's what we found in Credit Bank.
Healthcare is a vital component of human life. Credit Bank knows this all too well.
We were planning and we are in the process of constructing our St. Jairus Hospital in Kisumu, and we had approached Credit Bank, and we found them to be very friendly and calm. With the support that we got from Credit Bank, we have actually expanded that project, and by the time that project will be complete, it will be more than 1 billion shillings of a project.
Credit Bank does not end there. The bank is keen on supporting SMEs in the tech world. This is Kenctad Technologies, with core business is the development of software solutions for the building and construction industry, manufacturing industry, and the education sector.
It has taken years and years. Over 200 million has been invested here already. And
none of the big boys was willing to help us move forward. One, because they say technology is not tangible. We even promised them, we even showed them that we are going to bring billions back. We are exporting technology and bringing them dollars because our partners have been paying dollars. None of them was ready to present to us until we approached Credit Bank. They listened to us, we sent our charges to them, and instantly, it's like the waiting for us.
Being small and medium in size presents numerous challenges for any business, but Credit Bank believes in possibilities. When Empower Installation Contractors Limited came calling, it was empowered, literally.
We have grown from zero in 2007. We have a turnover now of around 200 million. We partnered for this particular project with the Credit Bank. That was in the year 2015. This project is worth about 350 million. So we had to get a performance board, which is normally 10% of that.
We have been supporting entrepreneurs throughout. These are for startups and also established businesses that are SMEs that employ Kenyans. And we run a very comprehensive program that is knowledge-based. Then when we are comfortable that the SMEs that we have and the entrepreneurs that we have are on board with us, with whatever knowledge we're impacting, then we give them money.
Credit Bank is indeed a sure bet for SMEs. A friend they can bank on in season and out of season.
Thank you. That was an amazing presentation by Credit Bank. So we are just about to start the panel session. But before we do that, we're going to have Steve D perform one more, then we start the presentation. So should you have any questions on banking and fintech, this is the time. Write them down because you get to present them right now. Steve D.
Thank you again for giving me this opportunity to entertain you guys. The last piece I'm going to do, it's a prayer. I'm a Christian, so I pray. So yeah, it's a prayer. This is a simple prayer. It's a song I wrote back. It goes like this. Hey, yeah, hey, hey, yeah, oh, oh, oh. I have never seen myself, I just imagine it. I never saw myself walk, and I'm even talking. Hey, I know I'm man on the mirror, but I'm not sure if that is me for real. I just wanna know, how you made me love. Why is my heart so unfair? Why is my soul so needy? Why is my mind so thinking? Thinking of you all the time. I wish I knew where of thinking. I wanna know how to make it. I just wanna make it. I know how you think it. Lord, I believe that you are true, and all my life I give it to you. Because I believe that you are true, and all my life I give it to you. Everything I do, everywhere I go, every song I sing it for you. And everything I do, everywhere I go, every song I sing. And when I pray, it's your grace that I feel you've shown me mercy, Lord. When I've done a lot of bad things that no man ever thought of doing, and no man knows his ideas, and in all them you have forgiven me and shown me the right way. But when I call on your name, you came to my rescue, and when no man happy, because I wanna make you happy. I want to make you happy all the time. Lord, I believe that you are true. And all my life I give it to you. And because I believe that you are true. And all my life I give it to you. Everything I do, everywhere I go, every song I sing it for you. And everything I do, everywhere I go, every song I sing it for you. I will say yes when you call me. I will be there, Lord, when you need me. And I will go wherever you send me. And I will do everything you say. I believe in you. Lord, I believe that you are true. And all my life I give it to you. Jesus, I believe that you are true. And all my life I give it to you. Everything I do, everywhere I go, every song I sing it for you. Everything I do, everywhere I go, every song I sing it. Yo, 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 yo. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's appreciate Stevie D once more. The 3 Factorial Club. Now we're going to have the session on money and banking with the CEO, Credit Bank, and Managing Director for Pay. Please come forward. So if you have any questions, this is the time. I'll be coming through to the audience with a mic so you can ask your questions. So, today we've been talking about ESC. I don't know if everyone knows what ESC is all about. So East African Community is an intergovernmental organization that brings together 6 states: Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and South Sudan. So these 6 states came together and they have 4 major where they're looking to seek to have, free movement of goods, services, and capital across countries. And the other thing has been already launched, the East African Passport, which is another development. Now for this panel, we're going to discuss about money and banking. And I'm glad to have Mr. Mushiri on set and the MD Credit Bank. So, Mr. Mushiri, you can tell us just generally how the Kenyan market is faring with regards to fintech. Like from your point of view, what do you think? How far are we? Are we ready to disrupt the banking industry? Are we ready to disrupt how we've been doing business?
Thank you for that. I think Kenya is a very unique market. And we understand that because of the revolution that came early here through mobile money, and that made us very different from other markets in East Africa or in the world. What I think is there is what you've just said about the disruption, but I also see opportunities other than just disrupting, where fintechs and financial technology partners can work with banks. I'll echo the sentiments of Betty Correal. She mentioned that how do we empower SMEs to keep records? Like an SME walks to a bank today and they do not even have their cash flow statements, basic things. What I think the fintech space can play, and the space we're trying to play in, is how do we work with these SMEs? How do we collaborate with banks? How do we partner with these institutions to bring more value to the person? So there is the 2-factor element of how do we cooperate, and again, how do we also compete as we cooperate? So there are many things, there are many elements to it. I don't want always to speak about fintech. I've been here. I'm an advocate. I'm an ambassador of fintech. Many guys know that we are not enemies to banks, but we've seen that delivering value through the financial money space is more times easier than in the banking space. But that's just my view from where I sit.
Thank you.
Maybe Betty, you could say something.
All right, so for banking, fintech for us is an enabler. So fintech will allow us to be able to carry through with our mobile banking, to carry through with our integrated services, because as I did mention, banking is now virtual. So whereas the clients would appreciate or want the one-to-one experience, the virtual component then can be done through fintech. For instance, if we are looking at a mobile banking solution where we want to lend through the mobile phone, then of course we have to use the fintech. So it's a point of collaboration and really being able to enable financial inclusion. That's how we look at it.
So I'll be taking questions from the audience. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. I'll be coming to you. See one gentleman over there. Anyone around here? Anyone? So just before I go to the audience, it was in 2013 when this phenomena came up in Mombasa. Bangladesh, it's an informal settlement in Mombasa. So they started what's called Bangla Pesa, where the community in the informal settlement would exchange vouchers instead of Kenyan currency. And this caused lots of problem with the Kenyan authorities in the sense, they thought this was sponsored by the MRC and they're looking to secede from the country. Speaking for the banking industry, what do you think about such complementary monetary kind of denominations? Is it something you would encourage? Is it something you would, be against?
Okay, so from a banking perspective, any unit of value, currency is seen to be a monetary unit of value. Now, there are different modes of storing monetary units. And it can be via Bitcoin, and it can be through what he's talking about, Bangladesh. I don't know what it is that he's talking about. But yeah, so what we're saying is that it's for as long as you've stored a unit of value in an underlying instrument or whatever it is that you're doing, then it's duly recognized as some form of transmission of money. But the challenge that comes in is that it is not recognized by the regulator more often, and it's because there is no way of being able to regulate, the components, or even sometimes being able to really interrogate the monetary value that is in there. So, because as it is right now, the monetary system is highly, highly regulated. So that's the only challenge. But then the question that comes to the fore always is, before we knew that M-Pesa was going to be a very stiff competitor to the banks, nobody had conceptualized that it was going to be a transmission mode for money. So it's welcome, and I think as a country we just need to be able to appreciate and adopt some of these initiatives.
Mr. Mushiri?
I think I'll concur with that, but the pain or the issue I'd have with that is that who regulates this currency? Because what they did is they were avoiding using money and creating some form of tokens that would be exchanged in the absence of money. To me, that is currency by itself, as you say, but who actually decides what value is that token today? Do you have a scheme of getting to judge that? Do you have a regulator? If today I own the currency and I develop that and say that each token is worth 10 shillings, then everybody buys that, then tomorrow I say each token is worth 2 shillings, then what happens to the investors who hold the tokens? So I think some of these things are welcome, but we need a bit of regulation so that we don't see scenarios where hard-earned money or in Kenyan hands getting lost to a few people through things like greed and the rest.
Thank you. So I'm going to pick questions from the audience, and I'll start with this gentleman.
Okay, my name is Christopher, and I have one question. So what's your take and what's your view? What does the future hold for the digital currency? The Bitcoin, the crypto kind of currency?
Okay, I'll begin with that. What I think is that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and the blockchain technology is a very good platform. It's a very good way of exchanging or holding value. But the problem is that very few of us understand how that is done. I'll give us an example of the Canadian examples. It was Canadian or Australian that happened about a month ago, where hard-earned money from investors had put in money, and the guy who owned the company died. So basically what happens is very few guys have knowledge of how do you exchange Bitcoin, how do you withdraw, how do you, if I've invested $1 million in Bitcoin, how do I convert that back to currency? They say that there's only one Bitcoin ATM in the US. I saw one in South Africa. I don't know how it works when I was there. So the question is, yes, the technology is good. Yes, we could use that as underlying technology in terms of in our capital markets to hold value across the board. But do we really understand how it works? Those are the challenges. And today, you find everybody coming with their own, like Kenya Beats. You find a Create Mine called, whatever it's called. So that's the challenge. Who is regulating all this? Who really owns the platform that runs the technology? But I think as a technology, it's good and it's welcome in the industry. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Austin Kiprono from Dora Analytics. We are a data science and data analytics company. And I have a question. Apparently, you guys are in fintech and banking industry. And there is one underlying question that tends to be avoided, the question of data and its open source. So last week, we had a United Nations conference on data and data analytics and data center, and it was in a study done by Brookings Institution. Last year, organizations that are data-driven had a higher profit margin by 68.17%, and that's a study done in Kenya. And so we're asking, what are you guys doing as data drivers, as industry drivers, by assumption of you guys being the panelists, doing towards making your data more open source for the entrepreneurs to access?
You want to answer that?
About making data open source is what you'd say is a debate that is in the air, but really nobody is ready to do that. I'll talk about the largest MNO in this country, and we've talked about what they've built and a fantastic product that has become a global phenomenon. Question is, what do they hold that is very valuable to them? Is it the product or is it the data? It's the data. So I don't think they would have invested as much as they have for me to build my platform and get that data from them. So yes, we're talking about opening up data, but is that the right way to go? What data are we opening up? What kind of, is it customer transaction? Is it customer information? Is it volume of transaction? Is it, there are very many elements and faces to the data we're talking about. So I think that conversation is a conversation that needs real thought behind it and real regulation if the data is to be shared. Maybe Ms. Coril maybe would also add on to that from a banking perspective.
I think for us, the issue of the data for us is really what you're speaking about in terms of, informing decisions. Would actually front for that if, we are able to interact the information, because the reason why we continue to be third world country is because there's what we call information asymmetry. So you find that, people are able to leverage and make some margins because the information is not known. Even today, the futures market is not fully developed here, so we are not able to say this is going to be the movement of commodities, this is going to be the price. So for as long as there is a bit of ambiguity around information, then we really cannot be a mature market. I know obviously my colleague in the fintech space will want to safeguard that, but I think it's the way to go.
I'm sorry to the rest of the audience, I have a follow-up question. As per Popotepe, Mr. Mshiri, you said, thank you. As per Mr. Mshiri, you're saying that about regulation, what data and how you can monetize the data and in a way that is beneficial to both you and us as the customers ourselves. But as per the charter of last week, it was created that there are new ways of anonymizing the data to make sure that your data gets to the people as in a way that will profitize you more. You'll tend to get more gain out of it than we do, but it is still really important for the audience to have data in different fields that they are. For example, Jumia last week happened to release their data to the open source public. What they did is anonymize data in a way in accordance with the privacy laws, amongst others, in a way to make sure that the people selling on Jumia know how to gain better insights into how they can push their products better into the market and how they can help the suppliers themselves get more margins out of it. Is there any way in which Popotepe, for example, and other people in your industry, you being an industry driver, sorry, might be able to anonymize your data and figure out ways to push forward the data into the public as to benefit us more too?
Okay, from that perspective, I'd say it's important, I think. And as you said, for example, for Jumia, the kind of data they're releasing to the market is trends in terms of what is happening. If I would sell this, what do I get back? So it's basically like getting to understand how something would fare before I do that. It's like a scientific equation to an answer that you don't have. So that would be fine. But yes, we're open to sharing data, but as you say again, what kind of data are we sharing? Mrs. Corril says it's important to share data. I agree with that. And I'll talk about an element of our platform. We have an element where we give ODs to businesses. She said ODs are expensive, and yes, I agree they're expensive. But if you're in a scenario where it's end month, you're not able to bridge your capital, and you need to pay your salaries and things like that, then you give particular ODs to particular people. But we do that using data as well. Like everybody else, you plug into a CRB, so you're able to see creditworthiness of this person that uses your platforms. Yes, to some extent, data sharing is important, but what kind of data are we sharing? That is a debate. I think, yes, let's share data. If it's about, maybe behavior, client behavior, and so forth, fine. But very intricate data, like what Facebook did a few months back, then that is a debatable conversation. And how are we releasing this data? Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Hello. Good afternoon. Afternoon, guys. Yes, my name is Kwamboka Nyatigo. I'm from MD Telematics. We do fleet management and car tracking. Funny that Ms. Sylvia mentioned one of our competitors, but as she said, it's more of positioning. Now we know better. So for me, it's more of a comment and a thank you. So we wish to thank Mr. Sebastian, the organizer, for this, and also their speakers. And we wish to also offer you guys a free fleet management, a fleet management portal, whereby we get to give you 1 year free car tracking on our advanced system. So we offer also Mr. Sebastian that, and we hope that you get to enjoy our service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to have an interactive session soon after this from 1. So if you have any questions, you can come to her, you can come to any of the panelists. I'm still picking questions. Do you have any questions for our panelists? Yes, please come forward. While she comes forward, Mrs. Betty, you talked about having project financing among one of the things you offer to entrepreneurs. Could you please elaborate what this entails?
Okay. So the question normally is, what is project finance? Project finance is where an entrepreneur comes up and say, I want to probably put up residential units, or I want to put up a commercial building, or I want to set up a factory. So project financing is a very intricate process. So where we come in as a bank is, first of all, we look at your project and figure out, is it viable? So we address it from the viability aspect. Is it viable? So the viability aspect is the first question that you ask yourself. And then the second thing would be, are you playing in a terrain that you probably have what I said earlier, comparative advantage? So for instance, if you want to go into the residential space, You then have to do what we call a peer market review, just to make sure that the pricing that you factored into your assumptions are the right ones. Because the success of our projects is normally based on the intricate details on how accurate your forecast, your cash flow forecasts, and your predictions are. So we're able to come in, and we have internal expertise. If you're doing construction, for example, somebody will come and interrogate the BQs and find out whether it quite reflects what you've been given. So it's some sort of a second validation to it. We'll come in and do what we call cash flow sensitization, and really build in various scenarios into it to try and understand, the what-if kind of thing. So assuming you are building for rent and you're assuming occupancy space of 80% to be able to make profits, and perhaps you're working with 50% to be able to break even. So when you sensitize on the critical variable, which is the price, then you can get the project right or not. The other thing as well is for projects, there's a duration when the project is being undertaken. So then we come in to advise on the ideal moratorium period and to be able to give you a structure that works. So I think that's more or less what I can comment for now, but you can see us for further details.
Good afternoon. I'm Shadrach. I represent Indo-Africa. I'm already a customer at a credit bank, so you can join me. Now, just for 1 minute, I also give loans. She gives me big money, then I give it to others, smaller units. So you can talk to me if you have a logbook and you need quick cash. If you have some invoices which are stuck somewhere for 90 days, I can factor them. I give you cash day one, and then I can collect later according to the agreement. My question to the bank is, these are very young entrepreneurs. The analysis tells us that they are going to grow in 2 or 3 years. How can the bank and the technology team help them to manage their risk? Why? Because most of the entrepreneurs require the knowledge to manage risk on a daily basis. And that is a topic which is never discussed with them. So I would request if the bank and the technology firms can come up with a way of discussing with upcoming entrepreneurs who have the knowledge and need cash to appreciate about risk management on a daily basis so that they're able to balance the turbulence in the first 3 years. We know that if they succeed the first 3 years, they will just excel in business. So that is the question, Madam CEO, if you can just respond to us, and I'll be happy if you can form a forum to discuss risk management with them. Thank you very much.
Obviously, that's a very difficult question because, the business is conceptualized by the entrepreneur. And personally, I have a background in investment banking. And it's normally a risk. It becomes a risk when you advise the client on what risks to take and what risks to forego because, some risks can be managed, others can be transferred, others can be completely de-risked. So what we can say from a banking perspective is that risk is really at the core of success of any business. And let me just throw out some elements to the risk. So first of all, there's a risk. Risks are various. There's management risk. So you can probably have 2-3 people coming together, forming a company, and they fall out. So there's an issue there. There's an issue of management risk as well when it comes to an issue where the shareholder is not functionally separated with the management of the business. So you find there's a lot of interference in that aspect. Obviously, when you look at issues, external risk issues like market risk, that market risk is something that we need to appreciate and be able to understand then how we begin to meddle through that. If we are looking at things, so I'm just trying to say there are various risk elements. The major risk for the bank would be the credit risks. So assuming, your business has to sustain and, be able to carry forward for the next 3 years. Credit risk begins to become a very crucial aspect to discuss, because then if you go to the bank, you take a loan, you go into this project and you're not able to succeed, then the next thing the bank will be doing is to come and sell your securities. But I say it's not more of credit risk, it's more of a business planning perspective where you more or less do not understand what the business entailed and what you needed to do. So it's more from a business conceptual framework. And it's also to really understand the critical elements around your business. So in other words, where do you play in that sector? I'm assume we are discussing Savannah Cement, and you're delivering certain components that have to be used. So if we are saying the construction industry is not viable, if you're downstream and you're producing certain elements that are critical inputs, then you're gone. So it's really to understand the risk from the aspect of the fact that, when an SME is pretty new, they deal with the governance risk, they deal with the business conceptualization risk. They also deal with the market, risk in terms of the competitors, who are the players. You can be in the same business, but then your cost production is very high. And then once your product is out here, you begin to realize that you've outmarketed yourself. But to be able to assist the upcoming entrepreneurs, and let me say I'm quite enviable about the age of the population here, is we have a program that we call the eHub. I think I talked about. eHub is an enabler. First of all, you come and you hear people brainstorming about various kind of business. They say you succeed in business where passion then meets, but then you need to get ideas. So you brainstorm, you hear challenges, then you also get a different perspective, you network, you get into a circle. You may find that, the value chain, along the continuum of the value chain, the players are in there and you're able to, convey and discuss ideas. But more importantly is that we educate them around the risk aspect. So what I had said earlier is, if you're in a particular sector and you come to us, we'll come and tell you the profile of the risk for this sector is X. Okay? What then would, really inform the risk premium is 1, 2, 3 factors. And then we are able to discuss with you. If you still think you need to go forward with it, then we take you forward and try and mitigate that risk. The other risk that also is in the SME is they will want to come to the bank and they don't have securities. So we partnered with certain organizations that come in and help the young entrepreneurs who don't have collateral, but then they have viable value propositions that can they can generate some sort of revenue. We also have a way of de-risking our portfolios. So de-risking our portfolios in the sense that we are aware that we are taking a certain level of risk, but then this is how we are going to mitigate it. For instance, if we are looking at contract finance, so if you're dealing with fintech, or assume a certain government entity or a big corporate, Mabati or whatever you want to call it, and you're doing a simple supply, what I'll do as a bank is not to do a risk assessment on you, but I'll do a risk assessment on the counterparty. So for as long as you supply, and we do that quite a bit, and we've been having a number of government parastatals talking to us to tell us, we have audit issues around the 30% quantum that needs to go to the youth, the women, and things like that. How do we do this? So for some of them, we've been able to come up with escrow accounts, and we give them leads to the manufacturers. So for as long as the manufacturer is within the approved list in the entity, assume it's Kenctad, you can then get the commodity from the manufacturer and ship it direct. And there now will not ask you for collateral. We open what we call letters of credit. Letters of credit in favor of the supplier, and so that way you're able to manage some of the risks. But then if it's a business that is ongoing, that goes through the motions and really has to deal with financial issues to do with contribution margins and viabilities, then you really have to work with us. And of course, we also have financial literacy programs that you can always come in and be onboarded.
Good afternoon. My name is Janet, and my question goes to you, Sam. You just said that the blockchain technology is well welcomed. But my question is, don't you think it will be a threat to the bank industry? My own understanding of the blockchain is where two or more people can transact without a third party being involved, based on trust and a distributed ledger. So where will the banking industry be when the blockchain is well adopted? Thank you.
First of all, I'll say that I'm not an expert in blockchain, but I have basic understanding of the technology and how it works. So first of all, that the blockchain technology can be used in many things. You can employ that in capital markets. You can employ that in many other things. These days we have like commodity markets, like she spoke about, and that is information that is readily available. If you're able to transact your commodities through a technology that is, it's flat, it's horizontal, that the value you see here and the value somebody sees in a different location is the same, basically. Yeah. So I think it's more about the technology than what it is coming in to disrupt. I don't want to say that it's bad for banking. I don't think it is. I think we've seen that let me give an example of JP Morgan. In the year 2016, they said the blockchain is bad. In 2017, they said they're looking at it. Sorry, 17, they're looking at it's bad. 18, they're looking at it, and this year they've adopted the technology. That is common knowledge, and that has been in this week's CNN's report. You could look at that. So if JP Morgan can adopt blockchain, then anybody else could do that. So let's look at how do we get involved, how does it help us, rather than how do we circumvent ourselves outside the technology. That's my experience, and it's happening today.
All right, cool, thank you. Soon enough, in the next few minutes, we're going to have the other session on the other end, so bear with us. Just before you drop the mic, I would like to ask you, now with cryptocurrencies and the fintech industry, there has been concerns that money could be channeled to illegal activities, such as terrorism and money laundering. What measures should we put in place, or are there in place in order to prevent this from happening?
The Kenyan government is a bit proactive, and I'm happy to say that. Sometimes I think last year a commission was formed under the oversight of Capital Markets Authority, and the reason for that was to see how can we leverage on this technology, and is it a good technology as is, as they look at other wider elements in terms of the fintech space. So the report is not yet out. I don't want to talk as an authority, but I believe that one of the things will be that the technology is good, it's good technology, and we could leverage on it, but how we employ that, how we use that is what is in question. How we use the technology, do we have oversight in the platforms that are operating? You talked about the Bangladesh cash. The problem was that could terrorists use these tokens to channel cash that is not visible to government? So it's all about regulating any technology that comes in, and how do we regulate it without over-regulating it and killing the good aspects and elements of that particular piece. Thanks.
So I'll pick two last questions. Just please come ahead. Two last questions.
Good afternoon. I wanted to ask only one question. My name is Lee. I'm an oil and gas consultant. So just wanted to know from a credit bank's perspective, the opportunities that you have for oil and gas professionals, and also the guys who have gone into the value chain in oil and gas, because especially we are more concerned on the exploration and production part in Turkana, Lokicha Basin. So do you have any opportunities for entrepreneurs who have gone to oil and gas, and then how can you engage together? Thanks.
All right, so You know, when they say oil and gas, it appears to be something that is far-fetched. Oil and gas is just a natural resource, and we know even as a country we have it up somewhere. So the opportunity at this point in time, Credit Bank is a member of our Kenya Chamber of Mines. Okay? So by virtue of being a member of our Kenya Chamber of Mines, we are able to interact with information that comes forward in terms of what stage the product, so whether it is at extraction, whether it is at exploration stage. But then what I need to mention is that, you know, the bank normally would not come in before the product is, I mean, we can't come in and finance the exploration, for example. But what we've been able to do is to, what I did say is, again, parts of the consortiums that deals with some of these programs, we come in as transaction advisors. The role of transaction advisors, more or less, is to really bring in the relevant professionals to our table and really have a conversation around what it is that needs to be done. And by virtue of the fact that we are members of Kenya Chamber of Mines, we have first-hand information. But something else to mention about oil and gas as well is there's a lot of opportunity in the trade finance space because we can issue instruments. You know, most of the people who would come to do exploration or the mining, for instance, I have one client from Italy would want to use a local bank to issue a performance guarantee. Okay, once the product is here and refined, they'll want to get a local bank to be able to do marine insurance. So that's where we come in. So we come in to be able to anchor in and give financial solutions around what they're doing.
Hello. My name is Tunde. My question goes to the CEO of the Credit Bank. My name is Lillian. Sorry, my voice is out. You talked about coming in for business contracts. I mean, at what point are you able to look at the contracts or the projects? I mean, do we have to be your customer or do we have to sign in? At what point do we come in for you to be able to look at it and probably advise and issue these credits? I didn't quite get to know at what point.
Okay. Do you mind telling me what space you're in?
Architectural.
All right. So I would imagine that has to do with contracts. Okay. So the question is, at what point? It is always preferred, and I do not want to look like I'm over pitching for Credit Bank. By the way, I do not have any marketing background. Let me say that. But, I mean, truth be said, if you collate all the bid bonds that have been issued, I'm told, I don't know whether is my head of trade finance here. I'm told previous year 40% of the bid bonds issued countrywide were from Credit Bank. And that really begins to tell you the significance of Credit Bank, because what we've done is to make the process very easy. Okay? So we've done a risk assessment on all the trade finance products. So the minute you get your contract, for example, and you come to us, I will begin by looking at the underlying contracts to find out what are the terms and conditions. Okay, and then we'll help you build draft documents that become financial contracts that can be enforceable. So